don't know Holly, she, in her professional world, she's the senior marketing leader with more than 20 years of combined experience developing and executing branding strategies, working with a variety of key stakeholders to create engaging executions and digital programs. Analytical manager with a proven track record for delivering significant sales growth through the proper allocation of resources, slashing costs while improving key performance indicators. She's an adaptable strategist, leveraging a diverse background spanning marketing, production, and leadership experience to bring holistic insights to brand development and strategy projects. And today, she is going to be sharing with us about living the dream, going with the flow when life takes you new places. And I know that she has a lot more to say about her personal life as well. So Holly, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Yes, I love it. You did an excellent job, Sarah, with that mouthful that I gave you from my, I wanted to keep it super profesh. So I basically sent you my LinkedIn analysis. Any of you guys who are on the call who have known me previously, was anyone surprised by the description that you heard of what I do for a living? Excellent. Thank you for your honesty, Sarah Tucker. I appreciate it. And then those of you who are kind of newer to my experience, I think one of the reasons I chose this topic is I think especially this year, we're all feeling like life is kind of taking us in a new direction, right? Things are not as planned and certainly not as we thought they would be. And I think that's been a common theme for a lot of people. And I bet Ramiro, just hearing your story of being in South Korea and how your life changed, not only in who you met there, but what you're doing. I think people like he and Wes and Iron Maiden on the call who've lived through a couple of career changes probably and some really interesting times in life will tell you that it happens more often than not to people who are successful and driven. So I figured tonight would be a good chance for us to talk about that topic. So I'm going to try sharing my screen. I've never done this in Google Meetings before, so if it goes terribly awry, I'm going to call in a pinch hitter, and hopefully Sarah will help me out. All right, pulling this up now. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Woohoo! All right, that feels like a win already. I thought this was a super cool thing that you made, Sarah, so I put it here. So, first things first, I think you heard Sarah talk a little bit about who I am. I am from East Texas. I'm from a small town called Marshall, very near Tyler, actually. And I sort of had big dreams as a kid. Sort of the first thing that I wanted to do was go to New York City and become a famous actress. And my goal in life was to win an Oscar. And so, at that point I thought, if I go and I learn how to sing and dance and act, there's no way this won't happen for me, right? So a lot of the people who are on this call probably knew this Holly over in the Who section. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I hear some voices, some whispering there. Nope.
I think we may just have a couple off mute. You're good.
Awesome. And by the way, guys, please feel free to bust in at any time. I'm not sensitive about the floor here. And then I will tell you guys a little bit about how I transitioned to the second part of my life, which was doing personal training, being a triathlon coach. And I wrote blog posts for a prominent company in Boston selling, shoes and whatever else as I was kind of living that dream. And that was really a transitional dream for me that led me to where I am today. And yes, this picture is not very well in focus, but if you have a picture of you with Sterling Brown, you've got to put it in every deck you ever make. So there you go, guys. That's me with Sterling Brown, who's quite possibly the most handsome person I've ever seen in person besides this guy right here, who is my husband. So the tall guy there with the hot logo, he's appropriately labeled. So obviously I've had a little bit of a journey, starting in Texas, going to NYU. I spent some time producing for film and TV there in New York. And then I took a break to study for my MBA and actually worked on getting a marketing degree. And I've worked for brands like Depend, Kleenex, Glade, and most recently Ziploc. Ziploc is my current brand that I'm on today. So I'm going to use the trust system. Sarah, I'm going to ask you to count some people for me. You ready?
Ready.
All right. Quick show of hands, guys. Who's doing the thing they majored in college for a living? Who's actually getting paid to do what you majored in college? you can do
Including the kids who are still in college.
including the kids who are still in college. Yeah, are you actually working
count
on
3.
what you're doing in college? I'd love
Does
to.
grad school count?
Nope, grad school doesn't count.
Oh, undergrad then. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, think way back, guys. Come on.
Okay, so roughly 3 folks, maybe 1. I
Wait.
can't see everyone, so we're at 2 to 3 people.
3 folks out of the 20 something on the call.
2, yeah.
Excellent. This presentation is for you. So we'll take it even further, one step further. We're at like a very small percentage already. Who is doing what they thought you were going to be doing for a living when you were in high school?
Well, we got 2. I
Well,
can't
that's
see that.
3. That's not bad.
Andrew's very excited to make it known that he is one of those people.
4. We got 4. All right.
Excellent. Very proud of you guys.
Comments are good.
You guys could take a nap. Or maybe you should listen because this might be coming for you. This might be the other part of that, right? So now here's another little exercise for you. Do you remember the first time, and I hope that your cameras are on for this part, the first time that you felt like you took a job that was off your intended path? Can you pinpoint that moment in your brain?
Yep.
Do you remember it being particularly pleasant? Did it feel awesome? Was it great? Easy peasy, right? No fuss, no drama. I'm assuming you're all nodding and you're like, yes.
Yeah. Lots of nods and lots of head shakes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the point is that change isn't easy. And when it comes for you, let's be realistic. It's usually pretty painful. In other words, I highly doubt that it was no fuss, no muss, no drama. So I'm going to get a little woo-woo with you guys in this presentation. And I'm going to focus on 3 key things that we want to remember when a path is being forged. And because I work at a business, we love to use very formalized ways to do feedback. And the way we like to do it at SC Johnson is stop, start, continue. So I'm going to tell you one thing you should stop doing, one thing you should start doing, and one thing you should continue doing for the rest of your life. Everybody ready?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so number 1, guys, and this is going to be hard because I have a feeling based on our little entry talk here that we're all probably living for tomorrow. I'm going to guess out of the 22 people on this call, probably 3 of you would consider yourself not a type A person. I don't know a lot of you, but I have a feeling that is probably true just based on the fact that you're a Rotarian. Rotarians tend to be people who are driven and who want the best for the world, right? As you know, I think Wes put it really well, or James, if you prefer, put it really, really well. Actually, do you prefer Wes or James? I'm going to ask Bob. Gotcha.
He's muted, but he goes by Wes in our club.
Excellent. All right. So as Wes put it really, really well, I thought it was a great kickoff, I think, to this conversation is that, seeing the world and doing more for the world is admirable. It's not only admirable, it's amazing, right? But I think what sometimes people who want to live for the greater good, who want to do great things, you get really caught up in living for tomorrow. For me, I think this came in, from the moment I decided what I wanted to do with my life, I thought, where's my Oscar? Can I get my Oscar? Can I just keep working until I get my Oscar? And I remember living in New York in my middle 20s. And, I woke up one morning and I went to take a shower and I ended up just sitting on the floor crying. And I called my mom and I was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know why I'm so upset. I'm doing all the things I wanted to do. And my mom said, I know you thought that this was going to make you happy, but it really doesn't seem to be making you happy. And that was a big moment for me because I think those of us who are, driven, those of us who are engaged in the world, those of us who have greater dreams, we feel sometimes that those have to happen at the cost of today. And so as you're going into, life outside of this call, life after this call, even tonight when you, sign off and go back upstairs to be with your dog or your family or, grab a pizza, I'm going to encourage you to run the track of this quote from Mother Teresa in your heart. And every slide's just going to give you a little pithy word and a quote. And this one is the one that I think you should start with. I want you to remember that whatever happened yesterday, whatever you promised yourself yesterday, whatever big thing you thought you had to do yesterday to be worthy, yesterday's gone. Tomorrow has not yet come. We have only today. Let us begin. And I truly believe, especially in this time right now where things are difficult, where things are heightened, where there's so much going on. And some people, I think we feel trapped in this moment, but I think it's important to remember that you've never had anything else. We only have this moment, and if you're wanting to do good for the world and you're wanting to do good for yourself, you need to fall in love with this moment. So the first thing I'd recommend that you do as you kind of look to the next change in your life, or maybe the change you're currently going through, is take a second, take a deep breath, and just stop living for tomorrow. Now, when you do that, you're going to have to fill your time with something else, right? So I'm going to encourage you at this point to start observing today. And this one is really hard, you guys, because I will say people who are driven, people who are Rotarians, especially in my life, tend to be the kind of people who ask other people, are you happy? Are you whole? Are you safe? Do you have the education that you need? Do you have the treatment that you need? Do you have the care that you need? Do you have the things that you need to be successful in life? Rotarians are very, very used to asking other people, do you have what you need, and how can I provide it to you? And I will tell you that answering that question for other people is very fulfilling. It makes you feel really good. But I think the difficulty that you have is, especially right now, a lot of us are forced into a situation where we don't have that distraction of constantly having these conversations with other people. And so at this point, I would encourage us, even just as people finding our way in business, ask yourself, when you're doing your work every day, are you happy right now? When I had that moment of, tears on the floor in New York City, which sounds so sad, it actually was terrible in the moment. It was really bad. And, I've had one in business since then where I was working on a business and things were happening and I was having trouble with a very difficult boss. And I thought to myself, day after day, I kept having trouble getting up. I kept having trouble coming in. And it's important to listen to that. And there's a really great, graduation speech that was done, very famously by Steve Jobs years ago. And one of the things that really stuck with me that he said was, if you wake up too many days in a row and you're unhappy, you're not doing the right thing with your life. And so it is very hard, sometimes when we're in these decisions that feel so big and so monumental, and when you're working for a company, when you're living your dreams or you're having your dreams, if you get up too many days and all by yourself, when you're all by yourself, you're asking yourself, are you happy? Are you happy today? Are you happy right now? And the answer is no. Then I encourage you to realize that change is already talking to you. So the change that you think is coming for you, or the change that maybe would have been a surprise if you hadn't done this, there's actually ways to see it coming. And a big part of it is just to have that conversation with yourself. Are you actually happy now? And I really am dating myself here with this song quote. So you're welcome. And then we're going to go into to continue, and into the way to continue. And this one, I would say, for this group of people specifically, is probably the hardest. And this is continue drawing the boundaries. Now that I've moved into SC Johnson and I'm working at a global company, as a matter of fact, at 8 p.m. tonight, I have a call with our China team. So I'll be on the call with our South Korea team, our China team, our ASEAN team, talking about new creations that we've done for them recently this year. And it's really cool for me to be able to be on those calls with them. But it's equally as cool because sometimes I'm going to have to be on an 8 p.m. call with them, that sometimes I say no to a 6 a.m. call. Or I say no to a 7 p.m. call tomorrow night so that I can put my daughter to bed. Or, when I have to do schoolwork with her during the day, even though I'm in a, high stress, high demand position, I block off an extra hour in my calendar to do math with her. And drawing these boundaries is really the difference between continuing in a path that continues to take you into a direction that you feel happy about. In the last slide, we ask ourselves, are you happy now? Are you happy now? And when you start getting to a place where you make one move, you do one thing, and you realize, hey, this thing that I'm doing today is making me happy. Playing with my daughter, drawing some boundaries, making a piece of creative, sitting in a difficult conversation about an innovation and how we trademark it or how we patent it. That makes me really happy. And if I'm doing that one day and it makes me happy, then when people ask me, hey, I think you should get an experience over here in sales, or I really think you'd be great for this, role in supply chain, I can say, I might be great at it, but it's not going to make me happy. And therefore the answer is going to be no for me, dog. It really becomes necessary, I think, as your life starts to change you and take you into different boundaries, open yourself up to, hey, when I'm doing that, does it make me happy? And if the answer is no, shut the door. If the answer is yes, shut other doors so that you don't have a lot of stuff coming in at you that isn't going to keep you on your path, that's going to pull you away. And sometimes that's a very difficult decision to make because we think we need to make that decision based on the future, right? Going back to the first slide. But it's not about the future. It's about today. It's about that choice that you make right now that in your heart, you know, makes you feel happy right now. And it's hard in a business context sometimes to explain this, but I can tell you that, you know, earlier when I, you know, started in my career, I was at Kimberly-Clark. I was working on Depend, which I loved, and, you know, Kleenex. And I would get phone calls at every hour of the night. I would get text messages until 5 o'clock in the morning. I would stay up doing, you know, decks. I would stay up, you know, doing analytics and digging into data. And while I enjoyed doing those things, I started to burn out very quickly because I wasn't giving myself the space to breathe, the space to kind of choose the pieces of that where I was really adding value and I was really shining, and I was wasting my energy on stuff that anybody could be doing. And so drawing the boundaries is really important. But what it means is that you have to stop thinking about the big picture as being all you, all tomorrow, all sacrifice now, and start thinking about the big picture as being literally this moment. And so coming out of, you know, really spending our time in today and being here for yourself, the next point is that then as you start to find the thing that lights you up, find the thing that turns you on, and you have to start to draw these boundaries, you feel like sometimes when you're closing a door, you're closing a door that will be closed forever. But I would encourage you, like Anna in Frozen 2, to break it down to this next breath, this next step, this next choice is the one that you can make. And it's a lot easier with boundaries to draw them as you go, much like, you know, when you're going through a path for a Sherpa, or you're putting on your harness for the first time, or you're climbing one rung up the ladder, you have to do that one step at a time. And your career is really no different. You may have some big light at the end of the tunnel and some place that you think you're going to go. But my encouragement today is don't get lost on the way to that big light and lose what you have today and lose the joy that you have today, because you only have today. And so I encourage you guys tonight, begin looking at today as your career, as your future, as your moment to shine, because it's the only one that you have. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed. I was told I should keep it to 15 minutes. I think I did okay. But I also left some time for some questions if you have them. So I'm going to escape and stop sharing here so I can see all your faces.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Holly. I think that is all of it. Every word of it is just wonderful advice. I know I can see Madeline sitting there taking notes, and I'm sure she's not the only one. I'm not much of a note taker, but I do plan to rewatch this and probably over and over. Does anyone have questions for Holly?
I do.
I do too, but I'll let you go first.
Right? Like, I love this. I think this is awesome. I took like 1,000 notes. I know people think I'm texting all the time, but I can just type faster than I can write. So I'm taking notes. But so my question is how? How do you get out of that mindset of, okay, this is my big goal, or this is the big light, this is the thing that I'm going for, but I need to focus on right now? Because I can totally understand that why, but I sometimes don't know how. I don't know how to get out of my own way, I guess. So if you have any tips on that, I'd be greatly appreciated.
I will tell you that's the most painful part. That's the hardest part. Because especially if you're a woman of action, which I'm pretty sure that you are, because it involves being still. For me, you know, a lot of people do it through prayer. For me, meditation has been a helpful addition to that. And I have literally gotten to where sometimes even at the expense of my workout, because, you know, sometimes it's an either or equation. You don't have time for both, right? Where I literally sit by myself and I spend time with, I use the insight timer because I have trouble focusing. So it helps to have someone talking to me. So just, you know, if you can't just sit in silence by yourself, you're not alone. I still struggle with that. So I usually do a guided meditation, but, you know, and I started just to ask myself the question, like when I start to feel uncomfortable, when I start to feel pain, when I start to feel, you know, unhappy or sad or just tense, like a lot of times, because I don't think even a lot of times we allow ourselves, that's the move. Like, we don't allow ourselves to, like, you know, to feel sad or anything, because you're like, I'm a business person, I'm working, I'm always working. It's important that I appear professional. And then all of a sudden your jaw is like this and your shoulders are up by your ears and you're like, I don't understand why I feel this way. And so sometimes it's literally just sitting down and being like, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling that? What is upsetting me? And sometimes asking those questions can take weeks. You know, first it's, what am I feeling? I'm feeling tense. My jaw hurts, or like I'm grinding my teeth in my sleep. Why is that happening? And then you kind of ask yourself that question, sometimes for days. And it's so funny because, like I said, this is a very woo-woo talk for me. You know, I thought, well, should I come in and talk about, like, you know, brand management? And I was like, well, not everybody needs brand management, but everybody could probably use change management. So, you know, so I'd say the first thing you do is just ask yourself those questions, and like get into it with yourself, and let yourself take as long as you need. And don't be afraid if at first it's only a couple minutes a day, just asking yourself those questions and kind of touching in with how you're feeling and what you're doing, because it goes a long way into helping you be able to fill up the cup for others, I think. And also just identify what the heck it is you want.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Again, ferociously typing down all the pro tips here.
Yes, for sure. Great advice. I love that you mentioned like the clenched jaw and the tense shoulders. I actually posted on my mental health pages yesterday or 2 days ago, like, take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, unclench your jaw. Because how often are we all doing that and we don't even realize it? And then you're like,
and I did it. Change my life every time you post.
Yes, yes. Love that. So for all of you sitting here watching this, relax your shoulders, unclench your jaw. Take a deep breath. I have a question before anyone else jumps in, because I want to be selfish with you. When you got to that point where you realize, like, I have to set those boundaries, I have to make a change. I mean, you're a type A person, you're super driven, motivated, go-getter. What was the biggest struggle you had in setting those boundaries and enforcing those boundaries, especially with yourself? Because that's my biggest problem. It's like everyone else is like, yeah, totally fine. And I'm like, no, it's not. So like, what was your biggest struggle with that, and how did you overcome it?
Well, two things. Number one, you're onto something there, because I will say, as you noticed in the earlier slides, you know, when I was freelancing, when I was acting, when I was doing stuff and technically working for myself, I took no time for myself. I was a terrible boss with myself, and I'm the worst at drawing boundaries with me and saying no to me, because I want to do all of the things. So that is the first step, and that's why the check-in has to be the first step. The second step that's going to be hard is, in order to be successful, there is a certain amount of pleasing other people you have to be very good at doing. And that can come in the form of your boss. That can come in the form of your spouse. And guess who takes up probably the most of your time? Probably your boss and your spouse. And the hardest part, honestly, was, I think the first time I had a rough conversation with my boss, who's from China. So I think Ramira could probably feel this coming. But he used to WhatsApp at all times of the night. And at like 5 o'clock in the morning, he'd be like, "Where's that deck?" And I'm like, "Chun-Li, like, you got to take a breath, dude. Like, you know, give it, like, I can't, like," and honestly, I never felt comfortable telling him that. It had to get to a point where my husband said, "I need you to draw some boundaries with your boss. Like, I need you to be home. Like, I need you to be home for a few hours a day. Like, you can't constantly be on call. You know, you've got to set some boundaries." And so that was the first hard conversation, because he even said, he said I was mad at him, or like I was going to quit because I stopped answering, you know, and I had to explain to him, like, no, I'm just really trying to do a better job being present when I'm here with you, which necessarily means removing myself when I'm not here. And especially, and I, you know, actually some of the men on the call can tell us if it's the same for them, but I think sometimes for women, you're afraid to have that conversation because you don't want to be seen as the woman with the kid who's not engaged in her job, you know, or the woman who, you know, has her personal life get in the way. And so you really have to be careful about that. But the right bosses and the right situations and the right people for you who are going to help you shine are going to help you with that. But there is always that necessary breakage. And even sometimes with my husband and I, when I'm like, hey, I need to spend like an hour alone in our room, like I'm going to go lock a door, like I love you, but I just need like a few minutes. You know, the people you care about the most, which always for me is like, you know, it's always like, you know, the boss in the brain space, the husband in the home space, or the mom, you know, they're the hardest to set boundaries with, because they're the ones you want to take care of so bad, and you don't want to hurt their feelings. And it will at first be a very difficult conversation. But one of the things I will tell you is it's much easier to start when you go to a new job, you know, signing off early and having conversations about why you do that, than it is to change that behavior once you're into a job. You can do it. You can change it. It's possible. But it is, you know, like my conversation with my last boss, very, very, very hard, because, you know, it will feel personal to them because it will be different than what they have seen you do.
Beautiful advice, as always. I definitely am in that situation right now where I'm like, have to set boundaries. Had to have that conversation with my boss recently where I was like, got to take a break, got to take a step back. So, yeah, for anyone else wondering that on the call, yes, it is really hard, but it's worth it to take care of yourself, because in the end, I mean, we've got a relatively young group for the most part on the call here, and you know, we don't want to look back 20, 30, 40 years from now and go, God, I wish I'd had that conversation in my 20s or 30s that you're finally having towards the end of your career.
Well, and Sarah, I think you're onto something too, which is worst case scenario was always really scary for me. I was so afraid of, I'm going to get fired, or like they're going to let me go, or I'm not going to get a promotion. And I love it. Wait, do it again. I love it. That was Sarah Fox did that. Like, yeah. And wait, you got to go off mute. You got to go off mute.
Can you figure out where the mute button is, Sarah?
You signed in as my name this time and not Marshall Rotary. Now you just said I was scared about getting fired. Oh well, then it just won't work out. Like, it's okay. It happens. I've probably been fired at least 3 times. It happens.
And this is, I love when you do that, because honestly, I remember being terrified when I was young of getting fired. I was so scared. And then the first terrible, and that's what I talked about, like, you know, was it a happy moment when change came for you? Sometimes it's not, right? Like, I remember, you know, getting let go from CNN, and it was no fault of my own. But what it made me realize was, when the company is struggling, they will let you go, and they're not going to think twice about it. So if you are struggling with the company, and your relationship with the company isn't good, and you are afraid of letting them go, that's not good. You shouldn't keep toxic people in your life. You shouldn't keep toxic companies in your life, right? So it's like, you know, you spend 8 hours a day at least, at the bare minimum, with your job. You know, like, good grief. So a lot of people might get fired, and then kind of embracing what that looks like. And, you know, sometimes it's worth it.
Yes. It is worth it. Sometimes you have to, I don't know. I've been fired several times from a job, not several times, 3. Been fired and thought I was happy, and then realized, you know, looking back, I guess I really wasn't that happy, and it kind of shows in your work, and maybe contributed to some of the reasons why you were fired. And I don't know, hindsight's always 20/20.
And that's also why I encourage that, like, self-check-in moment, because if you start doing that, what you'll see is you will start to see the break before the break sees you. Whereas I think when I was so worried about, I've got to impress these other people, and it's this outside force, and it's this forward future thing I'm going for, I wasn't doing my best work. I wasn't doing my best work at all. They weren't getting the best of me. They were getting whatever they asked for. And I would try to level it up, but it wasn't me. It wasn't coming from the things that I can over deliver on. And so what I found is that kind of self check-in lets you be the one to cut the cord. It lets you draw that line, because you start to see what is influencing your best work, what is influencing your not best work, because you feel it. And you have that conversation with yourself. Love it. Yeah.
What other questions? We still got Holly for a little more time.
I was going to ask, were you auditioning for being the speaker at Ryla during this meeting?
That's
Because I feel like everyone.
I know some people.
Now that's a fun gig.
There might be half of the Ryla board on the call today. Maybe. Yeah, for those of you who aren't aware, such as Holly, we do have our staff coordinator, secretary, treasurer, camp director, and COPE director are all members of our club. So if you want to come back, Holly, we can make it happen.
I have another question if no one else has one.
Please do it.
Okay, so in the beginning, you kind of were asking the questions of, did you do what you studied? Did you do what you think you were, kind of a deal, right? What is your advice for someone who at this point maybe still doesn't know exactly what they want to do or how to get to what they want to do? I'm asking for a friend who is me, who is like 30 years old and has a master's degree and has been working in the same career for 6 years, but I still don't know what I like want to be when I grow up. And I don't know how to like branch out of something other than what I already know and what I am good at, even though it may not 100% make me happy. Like, what? Coach me, give me life advice.
That question times like 10, because I saw lots of head nodding.
I was gonna say, I bet there are a lot of people on this call who could probably help with this one, because I'm sure a few of us have been through it. And maybe I'll turn the mic over if one of you guys are interested after. But I think I think there were two kind of key things that helped me. One is cheesy and very tactical, which is I have a really wonderful mentor at my current job who gave me a PowerPoint, because that's how I function, a PowerPoint that allowed me to say, like, what do you like about what you currently do? Or like, it was basically like, what are you great at? What do you not want to do? And you had to lay that out. You also had to lay out, like, what are 3 options of what could be the most logical next job from where you are, you know, whether it's with this company or something completely different. And with that, then you had to lay out in your last 3 jobs, what were the things that you did that would be beneficial to those 3 jobs, right? And it sounds very tactical and very like businessy, and it was, and it is, and it's great for that reason. But I would say, like, oh, I love it. Yeah, we should have Iron Maiden answer that one. You have to say that after I get done here, just so everybody hears it, in case they're not watching the chat. But I would say, like, what I found out about myself, because I was very cut off with what I felt, you know, and like what I would do for free and what I really loved doing. But what I found was there were themes. There were like dots that connected, whether it was in what I did in production and kind of how I worked with, because my job was hiring all these people from all these different places and then managing them, you know, and making sure they got paid and fed. You know, when I was acting, a part of it was being creative. And so slowly but surely I saw this pathway to marketing of, you know, there's creativity and there's analytics involved, and I get to do a little bit of both of that, plus people management. So, you know, it's kind of funny, you know, when Sarah was reading my, like, you know, very professional profile, is those 3 things were kind of key for me. But what happened was I laid out all the things that I did, and I talked about the things I liked doing each day in those jobs. And when I laid them out on a pathway, all of a sudden I was in a completely different place than where I thought I was going to go. You know, that's not me getting an Oscar. That's, you know, me working at a company where I get to literally make creative every day and analyze data every day. And that's a very different future than what I thought it was going to look like. But it's built out of what I want to do every day, not just what I want to tell people I did on a billboard. You know, Karen, you should say your answer too, because I think it's a good one.
Oh, what I wrote. My dad asked me when I was a kid and considering what I wanted to do, he said, what would you do if they couldn't pay you? What would you still do? And I must have chosen well, because first I knew what I wanted to do even in junior high. I'm that person. I'm still doing it 41 years. And every opportunity I've had to donate my time, like to mercy ships or to missions in other countries, I've been willing to take my dental hygiene career and donate that. And so I guess I chose well.
That's awesome.
Wes,
And how-
do either of you guys have an answer for that one? Because I would love to hear an answer for that one myself, actually. Is it normal for the speaker to do that, just to be like, I want to hear somebody else's answer?
No, that's not normal, but that's you, and I love it. And I also love that your big goal was like get that Oscar, and your whole idea of like, I want to be on the red carpet, and look at you now, you're on the red carpet all the time. Well, when we had red carpets, you know, hashtag COVID. But that, I mean, that's so cool. You're still, you know, sitting there adjacent to that fun dream that you had, and doing exactly what you love to do. That's so cool.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it, MFA.
I kind of want to know how it was thinking about the more like financial side, and like how your family dealt with you making this kind of career change. Was it really tough, or were they very supportive? How was that time of like, okay, I'm going to do this with finances and your personal life and your family life and everything?
Well, this is I'm going to give you the true answer. And I'm not going to gussy it up, although I would always tell the truth, but I'm not going to gussy it up. Essentially, my husband was very, very supportive from Jump Street. He was like, you know, when we got married, whatever you need to do to have whatever you want. And we met in DC, we moved to Boston together. I know these are several steps that were somewhere in the spreadsheet, but were somewhere in the PowerPoint, but not very clear. And then while we were there, he thought he wanted to be a doctor, and that was what he wanted to do with his life. As he was working at Dana-Farber, which is the top cancer research hospital just in the world. He had an amazing gig, and he realized, I don't want to be a doctor. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I don't. Like, I see what could happen in your life, and you know what has to happen and what that trail looks like, and I don't know if I want to be a doctor anymore. And at the time, I was kind of taking a break. I was doing some production stuff there in Boston, but I looked at him and I said, okay, you know what? I'll go to business school. I'll make a bunch of money, and you can take this time to decide what you want to do with your life. Like, I basically said, I'm going to go, I'll go to business school so that I could just make some money real quick, and then you can decide what you want to do, and then we'll come back to me, right? And then it turns out, of course, I absolutely love life after business school, and it turned out really good. But I actually made the decision to go into business so that I could support us, so that he could do whatever he wanted until he figured out what he wanted to do. So sometimes it comes from a weird place, but that was at the time when I checked into myself and what I wanted. I was like, yeah, I want to do this for you. I want to do this for us. And it was, you know, kind of the way that we made the decision at the time. So yes, he's been very supportive. We currently have those kinds of conversations all the time, but I think since we've been having them our whole marriage, it's a little less weird now. You know, it's like, okay, well, we'll live smaller for a while. We'll live bigger for a while. It's okay. Because, you know, to Wes's point, we've traveled the world together. So we're used to being poor together, rich together, if you will. Not, you know, rich, but, you know, rich compared to what we were like when we got married. And we can live that journey because we've lived on both sides of that hill. So.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Very transparent answer there for you.
For those of us who know you a bit, have known you for a little while, we know you haven't been married for your entire career. So kind of in the same vein as what MFA asked, but pre-marriage, like, what was that like when you were trying to make career decisions and trying to figure out, like, what's going to make me happy? Can I quit this job? Can I make a career change? Can I totally shift to a totally different industry or whatever? Like, what did that path look like, and what were those fears before you had, you know, the support of someone else, whether that was just financial, emotional, whatever?
Yeah, I think I didn't have a very good balance. And I was fortunate that I think when I was working at CNN, one of the women, there were kind of two women who were very successful that I had this conversation with. And one of them said, you know, well, you just, you know, you find a place where you can be a big fish and you can be comfortable with your family, but you can also have kind of a big career. And the other one said, I didn't figure it out. I don't have it. I haven't done it. I don't know. Like and honestly, I will say the reason that I am, almost 40 now, you talked about being 30 earlier, and I'm still having these conversations with my husband is because, if you're going to have a career, there are going to be sacrifices. There are going to be times when one of you has to give or the other one has to give. And when you're single, it's the same. So for me, like I said, I was a terrible boss when I was single. I worked too much. It took me too long to ask myself that question about what do I really need and what do I really want? And as a result, my quality of life wasn't very good. That was kind of why I ended up on the bathroom floor. And then I had to pick myself up and figure out what I wanted to do with myself before I could invite somebody else into that story. And also I had to love myself enough to learn how to start saying no to the things that I didn't want, whether it was people that were not good for me or whether it was, jobs that would take advantage of my time. And I think that's really hard because, you think if you love something enough that you could do it for free, that you would do it with every hour of your day. But I think learning especially as a single person, like these are my boundaries and this is what I am willing to give up and what I'm willing to do and what I need to have outside of work. Learning how to do that is very powerful. It makes you very powerful because it means that you don't care so much about that job. What's the worst thing that happens if you get fired and you're single? You have friends, you have family, you have a place to go, you have someone you could call. I'm looking around at the faces on this call and I know that's true for everyone here, and I think that if you go to that worst case scenario place, it's not that bad. Right. And so it's reminding yourself too, in those worst moments, like, even if the worst happens here, it's still better for me. And that can be very hard, but I think sometimes you have to have these same conversations with yourself as a single person, because, I would say the flip side of the coin of the having someone to support you is having someone you support. And if you can't do it for yourself as much as you want to do it for them, you won't be.
Yeah. Very, very true. We've just got a couple of minutes left. Any final questions for Holly or any other comments? No? Okay.
It really spoke to me. And I think I'm probably speaking for many people here. That was great. Like, this year has been crazy for a lot of people. So thank you. It means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a great presentation, great Q&A session. Always great advice. There's a long list of reasons that we are excited to have you with us tonight, and hopefully more in the future. We can always dream, right?
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for having me. And I, can't wait to hear more from all of you, especially those of you who I didn't get to hear from as much tonight. So thank you for sharing your time with me tonight, your Rotary. It's given me so much. I was so glad to be able to come for a few minutes.
Wow. Thanks, Holly. We are going to wrap things up. Any final announcements? I know a couple of people jumped on after announcements at the start of the meeting. Any other announcements or things to share before we do four-way test? Okay. Are we ready to attempt the four-way test together? Everyone off mute? We can do it. Okay. I'm gonna do what I did last week. I have a picture, so we gotta start memorizing four-way test. So the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Number one, is it true? Number two, is it concerned? Number three, and number four, will it be beneficial? We could do worse.
Madeline was on mute, so.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. We will see the board back here next week, and we may have some fun activities the week after that. So y'all take care and go do some awesome community service. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Holly. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Holly. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.